For today's critical thought, we're going to be talking about punishment systems in video games and how they are universally a bad idea. And no matter how much praise Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is getting, it is very much a guilty example of this. When it comes to video games, any game, by definition, has to have win and loss conditions, and video games are no exception to that rule. And while we are accepting of losing at a game over, running out of lives, anything like that, punishment systems take things a little too far. And for our video today, we're going to define a punishment system as a built-in mechanic or element that affects the player's progress or status going forward. Now, this is not the same as dying in a video game. I run out of health, my character dies. We run out of lives, it's game over. Those are just the conditions of the game. What we're talking about are built-in systems that affect the player's progress or remove progress upon any kind of failure. And that creates a very different sense of play, as well as difference in the feeling or the psychology of the player when this happens. Now, punishment in a video game can be very small or very large, depending upon the design and the developer's intent. We've seen many games that go for full-on punishment, as in many roguelikes. When you die in a roguelike, all your progress is gone and it will never be returned. But we can also see in many Kaizo games or platformers, I die, we immediately respawn, we can go again. And here's the very interesting aspect. Depending upon the design and the extreme nature of the punishment, it can be viewed differently. And sometimes even a small punishment can be worse than what's considered a large punishment. And that's a major part of the issues I have with Sekiro that we'll talk about in the second part of this video. But when it comes to a punishment system, they are usually universally hated for a lot of people, and for myself included. The reason is that they're often seen as kind of twisting that knife or throwing salt on the wound to a player who has already lost. Again, the act of losing, or the lose condition, is not a punishment mechanic or a punishment system. It's what comes after that that can be treated as punishment. Now, as I was just saying, many video games tend to feature both small or large, and we can also equate this to short-term and long-term punishment. Or short-term punishment is the most popular, and that is simply losing progress, or losing the time you spent trying to do something. When I played The End Is Nigh, I died, 50, 60 times in the span of 40 minutes. The only thing that I was being punished for was the time I spent on the previous run, which was seconds. Some games you can lose progress in minutes or hours. Now, a major part of punishment systems, and why I'm not a fan of them, and why a lot of designers don't like them, is when it comes to what comes after the punishment. And that is how it affects the player going forward. We've talked about this before, this idea of a downward spiral, as in, I keep losing, thereby the game gets harder, so I'm losing more, so I keep losing, it gets harder and harder and harder, and I can't recover. In many roguelikes, the downward spiral is a major factor of these games, and it's considered kind of fair, especially when we're talking about games built on short playthroughs that you're supposed to replay again and again. Keep that part in the back of your mind, as we'll be coming back to that one in a few minutes. But if you're playing a single player game or a long-term focused game, the downward spiral is not a popular feature because it kills your momentum of playing the game. This was one of the few complaints I had with Bloodborne, and how any blood vials or bullets were consumables, and if I use them during a boss fight, I don't get those back, so I'm forced to grind. Now, here's the big point, because I'm sure somebody's going to comment on this below. What's the big deal with having to grind resources? You're spending a few extra minutes trying to recoup, and then you're back at it. that shouldn't be a big deal. But it is. And this is where the psychology of loss comes in. That people don't like to be punished when they play video games, and more importantly, they don't want to feel like they are losing or wasting time. If you have to repeat a platforming challenge 100, 200, 500 times in Super Meat Boy, that's on you. That is the time that you are spent trying to learn, and you are getting better. You are making progress, no matter how many times you play that. But when you lose progress, or it gets taken away from you, that is time and energy that is forever gone. And why a lot of people don't like this. It goes back to that old adage that it's easier to catch flies with honey than it is vinegar. You want players to feel rewarded to play a game, not punished. The last time we brought up this topic, I brought up the example from World of Warcraft with Blizzard, and how they were having a tough time motivating people to stop playing World of Warcraft because they didn't want to get lawsuits and, stories of people killing themselves playing the game. So the original intent was to have a punishment mechanic that if the player was on the game for too long, they would start to get experience decay. As in, enemies would stop rewarding them with full experience unless they logged off for X amount of hours. People didn't like this because, well, again, they were being punished for playing the game. So what they did was they transformed that into rest XP. Every hour that the player logged off from World of Warcraft, they would earn, I think it was like a 1.5 to 2 times experience multiplier, which would then be applied to the game when they signed back on. So what that meant was they were able to make more progress by playing the game less. And Blizzard was getting the same reward, the same outcome that they wanted, but it was expressed differently. And that is a key part about this. That punishment mechanics in games are viewed as taking something away from the player. And in many cases, this can make the game worse for them. And when this happens, it can remove or destroy any motivation to keep playing. This is one of the issues I had with the game 1001 Spikes. In that game, you are given 1,000 lives. But if anyone who's played that game knows, that doesn't mean much. It's like a Kaizo game where you could spend 2,000 lives trying to beat that game. But the point is that the game counts it down. That creates stress on the player. It doesn't matter if they have 99 lives, 10 million lives, whatever. As long as they're seeing their lives slowly but surely ticking down, that is creating pressure. And this is why many Kaizo games these days just literally say, here's infinite lives, spend as long as you want, die as many times as you want, play this game. And again, it's a difference in mindset that affects things. But with that said, we're going to switch to some footage of Sekiro and talk about how this game really fails when it comes to its punishment systems. And I didn't misspell that or didn't say that wrong. There are multiple punishment systems in Sekiro. But as always, a quick shout to our Patreon backers. And now for a quick thank you to our Patreon backers. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, you'll find our Discord channel linked down below. Here's some footage of Sekiro to go with the video, and from probably the fight that all the fans enjoy watching me die from. But Sekiro is a game that I just do not like, and I could spend the next 40 minutes or an hour talking about it, but for the sake of this video, I want to focus on the punishment systems, and how From Software got it wrong with Sekiro. Now, punishment has been a key part of the tension and challenge of all the Soulsborne titles that we've seen over the years. As, again, just to clarify for people who somehow missed it, when you die in Dark Souls or any of those games, your souls or your experience/currency fall to the ground where you died. If you don't pick them back up, they are forever lost. And that adds a weight in terms of making sure you don't die, as well as, again, a punishment. But with that said, that is one of the fairest punishment systems I've seen in a game. And the reason why is what Sekiro gets wrong. When you play a Dark Souls game or a Soulsborne, When you die and you have to recover those souls again, you are still making progress as you head back to them. Not only that, but it's still possible to be a guarantee or a lot easier to get them back. I'm able to get my souls back when I'm playing Dark Souls, I'm actually ahead of the game because not only do I have the souls that I lost, but I have all the souls I've earned getting back to that point. So I am not losing progress. Now let's say on the count that I do die again and I don't get those souls back. As you play through the game, the amount of value that enemies drop in terms of souls gets progressively more. So getting the souls that I need for basic resources is very easy. I'm not losing a lot of time when I die. Another big part is that during boss fights, your souls are always going to be on the ground. As long as you pick them back up, even if you die, you can do that again and again. There is no long-term penalty for dying repeatedly in a Soulsborne game. Yes, I'm losing time, but that's on me. I'm not losing anything that I can't easily get back or recover. Sekiro has two systems that affect things long-term, and that is not good. So the first one is this. When I die, I will lose half of my money or sen, as well as a percentage of my skill points that I had going into that fight. Now, it's only the skill points that are earned before you get another permanent point of skills. So it's basically kind of the resource to get to that point. I will never lose points that I've already been kind of banked. Now, the only times where I will not lose those resources is when the unseen aid prompts. That is a 30% chance by default. Now, right off the bat, that is a worse system than what we see in previous Soulsborne. In a Soulsborne game, as long as I get back to where I died, that is a 100% chance I'm going to recover those souls, or my resources. Here's where Sekiro goes a step further. Die too many times, and you will start accumulating Dragon Rot, a mechanic that lowers your unseen aid chance and also begins to poison and kill NPCs in the game. If an NPC dies, you will lose out on a quest or possibly storefronts if you don't recover them. And that is a terrible system. And there's several reasons why. First, it is a long-term punishment mechanic in a single-player game. This is one of the issues that we had with Darkest Dungeon as well. That if you lose characters in the Darkest Dungeon, that is a punishment that you will never be able to recover them. And that means you have to spend more time getting that stuff back. And the same here in Sekiro. When I lose all my money or all my skill points, I need to do all that again. I have to repeat fighting enemies again and again to get back to where I was before. Now, another issue with the Dragon Rot is that this is a long-term punishment. That this is affecting things going forward. So if I die 5 to 10 times or more in a span of 5 to 10 minutes of play, guess what? That could be affecting me for 30, 40 minutes or even hours at a time. And that is not good. You do not want short-term failure to affect your game long-term. Now, with that said though, I want to go back to a point that I made in the previous part, and that was about roguelikes. As we all know, in a roguelike game, when you die, that is all progress wiped. It doesn't matter if you were playing for 20 minutes or 3 to 4 hours, your progress is gone. See you later, you're never getting it back. And that is obviously more extreme than Sekiro here, or any Soulsborne game. But here's the point. People do not mind that at all. They love that when that happens. And here's why. When you play a roguelike, you are playing a procedurally generated game. The experience is different on each playthrough. Maybe you have different gear. Maybe you have a new items that you find. Maybe you get a completely new level. The point is, you are not repeating the same thing again and again. With a different experience, you're basically getting a brand new game. With Sekiro here, when I get stuck at this guy for 30-40 minutes, guess what? I'm not getting a different experience. I'm doing the exact same thing, but I'm also being punished for it. When I play a game like Dead Cells, or if Oddball is watching, and his favorite game, The Binding of Isaac, when I die and I restart, that is a brand new game. The thing that got me killed may not even exist in this playthrough. I don't know. And that's exciting for me. Now, another point about Sekiro, and this is the same problem I had with Bloodborne, goes again back to the blood vials and the bullets. Consumables that are vital to playing your game, or that you need for a boss fight, should not be removed from playing. They should be restored. Because I don't want to start a fight again at what's considered less than the original start, or the original play. If I need 20 blood vials, or let's say I want to use bullets, I don't want to feel like I'm being punished by the game for trying to learn this fight. And this is Sekiro in a nutshell. It punishes you for trying to learn it. When I play Dark Souls, I can die at a boss fight 20, 30, 40 times, it doesn't matter. I will always be brought back to my baseline. When I play Sekiro or Bloodborne, or lesser roguelikes with that downward spiral, when I die, I am starting at a deficit, and that deficit continues to grow. Once you've learned a game like Sekiro, these issues will not bother you, because you've already put in that time and you learned it. But for lesser skilled players, they are going to be at the worst possible point of a punishment system. They are going to feel like they are being punished simply because they are trying to learn this game. And that's why punishment systems are bad. They do not affect expert players. There is no greater skill or complexity here. It's just a knife that's being, turned in the wound for players who don't need that. You don't want people who are already bad at your game or trying to learn your game to be feeling worse. You want to give them either the tools to succeed or allow them another way to get around. This has always been one of the very weird things about a lot of Japanese games or RPGs or action games, that they'll have bonus rewards for expert players, but there's stuff that novices would need. It's kind of like, oh, you're having trouble running out of ammo? Well, don't worry. If you can beat this game perfectly in under 2 hours, we'll give you an infinite handgun, or an infinite rocket launch like in Resident Evil or Resident Evil 2. That would be something that somebody brand new would kind of appreciate to help them out or let them learn the ropes. But it's only a reward for the ultra extreme expert players. But to begin to wrap things up, Sekiro's punishment systems are just objectively bad design. They're meant, again, to punish players who don't already need to be punished. And that's the ultimate point about this kind of system to begin with. That the loss should be punishment enough. Like I said, when I play The End Is Nigh or Super Meat Boy or any other extreme platformer, I can play those games for hours on end and don't feel frustrated. Because whatever I lose, I can easily get back, and it's just on me to learn it. In Sekiro here, I feel like I'm being punished by the mechanics themselves. And this was from our play that was basically T-minus 10 minutes away from just full-on rage quitting the game before I just threw my hands up and said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And that is a major part about punishment, that it makes you not want to play the game. And like I said, roguelikes that are built around losing all progress are still acceptable, because you're getting a brand new experience because of it. As another example, in Grim Dawn, I just deleted about 8 characters from my profile to get ready for the Forgotten Gods expansion. That is close to 400 to 500 hours of gameplay wiped. And I had no problem with that, because those experiences are locked in. I already had them. I'm ready for new experiences. When I play a game like Sekiro here and I'm dying endlessly and being punished, I'm not getting a new experience. I'm just getting punched in the face again and again and again. But to end things here, here's my question for everybody watching. Can you think of games where punishment works? That it actually makes the game better as a whole for it? Let me know in the comments below, because I don't think there are games like that. As I said in my review of Sekiro, a better system of the Dragon Rod would have been a way of adding risk and reward. That every time you revive, not die, but revive, it creates Dragon Rod. But you can die as many times as you want. I think that would have been a far more interesting system, and again, it would be something for expert players to get around or to deal with, and not affect somebody trying to learn the game. But before I continue this rant for another 30 minutes and you watch me get beat up by this ape for said amount of time, we're going to end it here. So thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And if you'd like to suggest a topic for me to look at in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But otherwise, have a great night, and I'll see you all next time. If you're looking for a book on design, my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, is out now. It is available where most books are sold, and it comes in paper, hardcover, or digital copies. This is the perfect book for anyone interested in learning about game design, whether you are a student, enthusiast, or just a fan. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.